took the whiskey. Okay, that's fine. Okay, hi.
Nobody. You
no,
should.
no, really.
Wine?
Wine. Wine.
Not meat. I had chaser outside.
Alright, thanks for coming by to the sixth. I think it's the sixth installment of the Design Leaders series of the IxD meetup. IxD, if there's many newcomers here, IxD really just means Interaction Design Association, right? You can Google IxD. It's actually a global non-profit all around the world. There are chapters, and we're just one of the Singapore chapter here, right? So together with UXSG and many other design meetups here, we are just doing meetups for the community. So Design Leader series is somewhat unique in the sense that there's no presentation, although there's a screen and Priscilla actually wanted to show some stuff. So there's actually no formal presentation. It's really more conversational style. So if you are here for presentation, looking at some slides, I'm sorry there isn't any, right? So thank you very much for coming by, and thanks for Priscilla for you actually give her time to share with you guys. So we're just gonna get started. Alright, cool. Okay, I just started recording. Okay, hi Priscilla.
Hello.
Hi. Just to start, maybe you want to tell us a bit about who you are and how do you end up where you are today.
Oh, okay, long story. So I'm currently leading UX for Property Guru. My team is quite lean, and even though it's lean, I think we are very efficient, and I'll share more later. We are only a team of 5. We have 1 designer in Thailand, and then the rest is in Singapore. So how I started, I have always been a product person. So things like product ideas, user stories, or analytics, this is what I'm very used to. But I feel like deep inside I have always been a designer. So I started designing about 10 years ago, and I have a screen because there are a few things I want to show. This is actually my first website. Not 10 years ago, I think it was 1998. I hosted in Angel Fire, and I thought I was interested in internet or digital or creating websites. But then I started realizing that what I really like is designing. And you know, if you're old enough to remember, if you have personal websites before, you used to give awards to other websites. And this is one of my first graphic design, and I still have fond memories of that day when I first did this in Photoshop 5. So that's how I started. But then along the way, I realized that, you know, designing is not a career choice. If you remember, if you're old enough to remember, it was something that you do part-time because it's so easy. There's no CSS, it's just HTML. And companies are hiring from polys and technical schools, so the pay wasn't very good. So it's actually, you know, if you're Singaporean, you know that your first pay, it's actually something that your family will talk about, like, oh, my daughter is getting this, my daughter is a banker, my daughter is a doctor. And at that time, the popular occupations are doctors, engineers, and lawyers, bankers especially. So designer was not an occupation that anyone wants to go into, and therefore I was actually lost for a while, to be honest. So I was in product design, I was doing a little bit of project management, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
But then I have always been sidelining in design, so I do freelance design, and that's where, and I realized that even if I don't get paid, I will still do it. So I have a lot of designs for my own website, and it's just, you know, very obvious that it's something that I like to do. Why I didn't go into design full-time until much later, it was because the industry wasn't ready until UX design came along. And then
When was it?
quite recently. So I was a product owner until, I remember it's 2012. And then after that, I pivot into designing full-time.
Right, so 2012, so till now it's about 4 years since you actually pivoted.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I pivot, it was a mixture of product and design. So I was still like straddling between the two until I come to Property Guru, then it's full-time designing.
Right. So interestingly, you made this little cards here for everyone. Right? Most of them actually had this. What's the kind of mixture of group that we have here? Like designers, UX designer or some sort, quite a bit. Anyone that's like totally new to the industry? One.
Newbie.
Yeah, he actually had a newbie tag there. Anyone else? Okay, so actually most of us are actually designers or practitioners of some sort, right, in the industry. Okay. So 4 years, and how has the journey been? Right?
I love it. Because I think most of the time I'm doing something that I love. And then half of the time it's more about communication and all that. But I think it's something that you believe in, so you really have passion for it. I still have a lot of respect and a lot of love for certain aspect of product management. I think it really adds on to design. I think design alone at this point it's not enough. Because a lot of, for example, design thinking is just the upstream, and then it stops at consumer research. And then usually, consultancy company especially, it stops there, and then they let the company to publish the product or whatever project it is. But then there's no closure. I never felt like as a designer I had closure. I would design something for a client and then hand it off, and then that's all it is. So after I went into product management, and especially after I read the Lean Startup, it really clicked. I felt like the cycle is complete, and I felt as a designer I'm also more confident, because previously, even if I'm designing for clients, they would have very personal preference. They're like, oh, this color should be this color should be that. And sometimes I get very offended. I'm like, okay, are you a designer or I'm the designer? I'll be like, oh yes, I'll change it for you.
Right.
But then I think with data, it just gave me a lot more confidence in my design, because I can say, okay, I tested this, I did an A/B test, and this seems to be working. So I think, yeah, any designer should add at least a design skill, analytics capability into their portfolio. I think it's very, very important.
So that leads to really how does your team work here?
Okay, so I would say we do a full spectrum. We first lead the design sprint. We use design sprint. We call it a design workshop with stakeholders in Property Guru. So it will be people from marketing, from sales, from the CXO, we call it, higher management, the one with a lot of money, who always have a lot of say in the product. I love design sprint because it's a way to be very democratic about your designs. So everyone in the room have a say in what goes into the product. And then if you read about the design sprint, it is designed to expand your ideas, be creative. And then after that, there's a sketching exercise, and everyone will have sketches. And then after that, they have this art museum thing, which is my favorite, by far my favorite. So we will put all the sketches up on the walls like that, and then we will go around and see what are the features we like or not, and then we will put voting votes.
Yeah.
So it is anonymous, so you don't know who is actually designing for what, but at the end of the day, you can see which are the features that are very popular. So if I'm a CEO, even though I'm a CEO, I tend to step back and say, okay, actually these guys, they like this one, so to be fair, we should test this idea.
So it's more democratic.
Very, very democratic.
Okay.
It really helps.
And you run it over the 5 days, or is it like shorter?
It's much shorter for us because we do it by feature.
Okay.
So we don't start with nothing, because Property Guru is already a very established product. So it's more like, hey, we're gonna do this new feature, or we think that there's this problem that we need to solve, and then with that problem in mind, it's a much narrower scope, so it's easier to design and discuss for. So we don't need the 5 days. For small feature, I have break it down into just 2 hours, and then after that the testing and prototyping happens after. For bigger design, it's about 3 hours, and then again the prototyping and testing happens the second and the third day.
Right. So it's all kind of like squeezed up in this 3 days time frame. Okay. And how has anyone used design sprints? 1, yeah. 2, 3. anything you want to ask about design sprints?
You just say that you make the design sprints way shorter. So for functions, isn't it then more like a design studio than really a complete design sprint?
Yep. So that's why we call it a design workshop. But then we run the full cycle as well. So we did the prototyping on the second day, and then we test with users on the third day. Just that it will be much faster to come to a decision.
Do you have an in-house lab?
We don't. We just use meeting rooms. We have always wanted to come up with like a design war room, but yeah, work in progress.
How do you do it that you, I mean, you say it's very democratic, right? But in my experience, you have a lot of voices, so everybody wants something else. So when you say three days, it seems very short.
Yep.
Especially that everybody, can kind of unify on one idea or some ideas or directions. So I find it always very difficult because everybody has an opinion, especially designers are very strong about their opinions, right?
So this is how we adopted the design sprint and then do it in Property Guru.
Yeah.
So the first hour is about understanding the problem. So we will talk about business goals. This is where the CEOs will come in and say this is the vision. For this year, this is where we are going towards. The second would be the success matrix, and I think this part is very important. So imagine if Steve said that leads is actually one of the business goals, and then to ask what are the success metrics that lead to leads. It can be increase the traffic, it can be improving conversion rate, it can be improving leads, and then leads per agent. So these are the metrics that we measure. I think by then it's quite clear what we can design for, so everybody knows that this is the scope. So they're not going to think of crazy ideas like virtual reality unless it actually supports the success matrix. And then after that, we review the current matrix to see whether it's even reasonable, so where we are at. And then we will map out the current user journey, which is always very helpful, because imagine if you are in marketing, you are probably focused on marketing and no offense, but that is your main role, and I expect that you wouldn't know anything about the user journey. So we get everybody in the same page. We have personas plastered at the wall as well, so they know who the users are. And then sometimes if the problem is too much, so we try to target the problem, someone will decide. And then the next hour it's all about being creative, coming up with solutions. So we will do a round of research. We see what are the current examples that we can adopt from. And then lightning demos, this is a show and tell. So for example, I like Airbnb this, I like RateMart this, and so on. And then we come up with ideas and crazy eights. Crazy eights is an exercise for you to start sketching and start to visualize your ideas. Then after that, we have actual sketch. So it looks something like this. This is the prototype or the storyboard that we put out on the wall, and then it will be voted. So there will be 2 rounds of vote. One is the heat map. Because this is completely anonymous, so I'm actually voting on the feature, and I always tell them this is not a competition. We are working towards the success of the product. Don't make it personal, because sometimes they get a bit defensive and a bit competitive. So after the first heat map, you see clusters of ideas start happening, and then some people don't really know how to draw. We will have 1 round of speed critic. So the sales guys would have the chance to sell their idea, and usually they get more votes then. And then after that, it's quite clear which are the winning ideas, and then we get the ideas and prototype the next day. And the third day we test with the users. I think the speed is also one of the key consideration, because if it's too slow, you tend to be very protective of your idea, because you're like, oh, I never get to build this, I need this, so I'm going to just go on this. But then, because the cycle is so fast, you get to ask the users whether it's working or not. So I always call them sacrificial concepts, because don't get too attached to ideas. It's very easy. You just take 1 hour, everyone will come up with like 100 ideas today. But what works and what do not work, that is actually what we're asking for.
What do you use as a prototyping tool?
My favorite? It depends on the stage of the product. So if it's an idea, like just an idea, we use very high-level wireframes. I don't have examples of it. So it's just diagrams, not even a prototype. Because sometimes users can get too distracted by things like buttons and where to find things. So I just want to sell the general idea. If it's an existing feature, then a high fidelity prototype, low fidelity prototype like this. So this is one of the ideas that we tested with. So I can click, this is Envision right away, and then I can click through, and then we will ask more usability questions for this case.
So for an established product, right, like Property Guru is a very established site, apps and the website. Is it very difficult to enhance upon?
Yes, very difficult. That's like the understatement, because we have millions of existing users. So every time you change certain things, right, everyone is going to jump. It's like, why did you take this away and why did you take that away? So we need to manage that. That's why I always believe in linear process and iterative product development. So it's so small that you don't actually notice, and it's actually harder if you explain this to sales and marketing, because they are used to big bang approach. So whenever they want to launch something, they're going to create a big campaign and say, oh, this is completely new, there's a lot of excitement. So the analogy that I like to use is that imagine you have a house, your home, and today if you go home and someone rearrange all your furniture, how do you feel? You're just freaked out, right? But iterative approach means today you go home and you notice that somebody shift the television a little bit, or maybe change the television to a bigger one. So you notice that, oh, there's this change, but I'm okay, and I'm accepting because it's a good change. And then slowly you move all the furniture a little bit by a little bit, and then finally you get your vision. So I think the Big Bang, I don't think the Big Bang approach works, so I'm still trying to communicate to the rest of the organization that we can't go like that anymore.
Right. How is like your UX team composition to the rest of the team, like in tech and the rest?
So UX team currently sits in product. We sit in the middle. We are kind of like a consulting
So it's a
team as well.
shared services.
Yeah. So we actually do a lot of work for sales and marketing as well. So if they want to test like a new pricing strategy, we are also involved. If they want to redesign their package, some of their collaterals, we are also involved. So I think it's more of a consultant relationship, although we sit in the product team and we do daily scrums with them. We have our own backlog, we use Jira, we have our own swim lanes, and we measure our own velocity.
Right. How big is the team again?
About 5.
About 5.
And we are expanding.
So 5 to how many? Like
5 to the whole organization, I guess.
to the whole organization?
Yeah, as mentioned, we are very, very lean.
Okay.
And there's also method that we use. So if you have questions, I can show you some of the methods to remain very fast. So we do things like, we have a UI kit, and then maybe I'll show you the UI kit. Everyone familiar with UI kit?
Some sort. So the thing about this design conversation series is that you are free to ask any question at any point of time, right? How useful is this whole session is up to you, right? I can only ask some questions to set up.
I have a question. So how often do you do these design sprints? Once a month, or every week, or every half a year, or so?
We used to do it once every month. Sometimes it was before. Internal, currently we do some restructuring, so it's slower. So we are actually, like, it's a more of an organization thing that we're stepping back. But previously the cadence was about 2 times a month.
Yeah.
But I guess in addition to that question, what triggers the design sprint though?
When there's an issue, when we did qualitative research and we find a problem, so it triggers it. And then things, it usually comes from a data point of view, like leads is dropping, or for example, the app rating is going down. And then sometimes it's just like a product health thing. We know that this has been the same for a long time, and it's an old design, it's a legacy, and then we need to migrate to like a new technology. And so we do a design sprint.
So for example, I mean, earlier you mentioned some new tech like VR, maybe even looking at AR.
Yep.
And you talked about iterative building.
Correct.
So I mean, at what point, as a designer, would you consider some of the break points where tech or market becomes disruptive enough that triggers a emergency design sprint to tackle this problem preemptively?
Very good question. So I have, I'm not going to go through a slide. So we actually break down to 70% iterative work. So whatever that we have now, we should constantly optimize and improve that. 20% is innovative work. So it will be like a 1 to 2 year landscape. So we put 20% of our time to look at more innovative product. And then 10% would be disruptive. So we see what is ongoing. Is it AI? Is it virtual reality? Is it home companion? And then we try to see whether we can do something there.
Do you allocate like specific catch-up production time? For example, like say property group, I mean you guys deal very specifically with prop, right? So if you talk about say a VR company working with a competitor and now they do 3D scans of property to enable virtual walkthroughs, then I mean, do you analyze threats, I mean, competition, like specifically?
Not really. So for me, right, if it's been done, it's even better. So we're just going to use that example, and when we test with the users, we're just going to use it as an example. What do you think of this? And it's already built, so even better. Okay. So I don't think the catch-up game is something that we want to go towards because we are still a market leader, and we should act like a market leader. And we are, of course, following what other property portals are doing. So we know exactly what Julia is doing or Room123 is doing. But it's more of a, okay, we know that you're doing this, but because you're doing this, we're probably not going to do this until you seem to have traction.
Do you, sorry, the last question.
It's alright,
do you look at other industries' trends as well?
Yes. I think there are big trends that we look out for. One of the trends would be designing around, it's no longer even a trend. I think it's quite confirmed that it's better to design around experience. So it's not about what your product can do, because designing or creating for a product, it is very risky. It depends on how the technology is going, right? One day iPhone is popular, one day Android is popular. So we don't have confidence there, but I think experience is always constant. In fact, in UX, you want to change your behavior. Behavior, if you don't change, then it's not going to change. So designing for experience, I think it is less risky and a lot more stable. So that is one. And then at the other spectrum, which is really far-fetched, maybe I'm the only one who thinks, I think that everybody is moving towards representing existence, like human existence. Like what is it to be a human?
Self-actualization?
Kind of like that. So all this AI, and then for Facebook is connecting people together, but at the angle, what are you gonna do?
Off topic, you should watch Westworld.
Yeah, I'm watching it. I love it. It's kind of like that, right? That whole idea.
Because
like,
it encompasses design theory and the consequence of design.
Correct.
Okay, so you were showing something about
Westworld. What do you say?
Westworld.
Westworld.
Something that I find useful for UX is that UX is, at least for me, 50% is actually doing the work, but I think 50% is selling to the company and selling to your management. So what is useful is we have like a buffet deck. When someone new come in, we will present what UX is about, and then some case studies. I always feel like if you can connect your success metrics and design to the business outcome, it clicks. If you say UX is this, they're not going to listen. So we have a deck like that explains what UX is about, and then we have some case studies. I wanted to show this part actually, which is linked to what you were asking. So 70% of the time iteration, 20% innovation, and 10% disruption.
When you talk about your team being very lean, what are the roles within this team of 5?
I have 2 UX designer, and then 1 product analyst, and then 1 data analyst. So he is all about churning out data and then telling us sprint after sprint what works and what doesn't work. with a UX lens, so it's not completely about revenue. And then, yeah.
So what about UI? Where does that, how does that fit in?
Okay, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I feel like, I think I'm going to.
Go ahead.
I am a designer by heart, right? I love design, I love the visual aspect of design. I'm obsessed with fonts, colors, whether this is gonna match that. I mean, that's what I really enjoy doing. However, I also acknowledge that you have 100% of our population, only a percentage can see the difference because they are visual, spatial intelligence people. So you have to acknowledge that a lot of people, they can sense it, but they don't really see the difference. I have met users who I give two different designs. One is, to me, much better, and they prefer the one. So I'm losing hope in UI design. I think there needs to be a standard. So not that ugly design word. There needs to be a minimum standard, but above that, if you want to be perfect, then your effort is not going to have a lot of results. So that's a minimum.
Who is doing all the UI work? Like,
We are all doing all the UI work.
you are doing the UI work.
Yes. I'm doing the UI work. Another UX designer that I have is really good at UI as well. And then another UX designer is better at user research. So I think it really depends on the team.
So in a sense, your team is really made up of hybrid roles.
Very
They're not-
hybrid.
yeah, right.
Very hybrid.
But would that have to do with anything because of what Property Guru is? I mean, it's targeted more on mass market, not very specific niches, I assume. So meaning even your I mean, slight gripe about like UI, design acceptance, right? You're still targeting to a mass market, not to very specific markets or targets, right?
Yes and no. Because I think for UX, right, at the bottom is providing a value to the users. So once you meet that, then you can go to the next step. So I feel like we have a lot of work with meeting the value, the user value first. There's a lot of work we need to do that. And then once that is completed, then we go to the next step, which is maybe UI. And yeah.
So to many who are, I don't know, I'm sure there are some that is kind of like new to the industry. So which one to focus on then? Like, should I do UI or should I do UX or should I just do like everything?
I think that you definitely, if I want a good UX designer, you definitely need to do, you need to be empathetic. If I can get, it's very hard to find someone who is good at user research and someone who is good at UX because it's just different skill set. So I'm actually hiring for both. For user research, researcher, I'm looking for someone who is very personable. So I feel comfortable talking to the person and able to get insights from observation, so fairly intelligent. And then communication as well, because sometimes I feel like you get all these insights, you need to be able to sell it to the organization, so that's important. For user experience, right, I find UI designer, I feel like even though I don't okay, looking at your faces, right? Let me find another way.
That's why I thought about empathy, right?
I feel like I can sense people getting angry. Let me find one good example. I did a presentation recently. Okay, this. Okay, so this is, maybe we go to something that is not related. So if you look at Starbucks design, the whole thing is user experience. But if you look at just product design, you're actually talking about just the coffee cup, which is a very small segment of the whole experience. Because when we talk about experience, it's about discovery, it's about ambience, it's about music, it's about the smell, the scent, it's about how the barista look, the first human touch point, and then this is the actual product design. The coffee, it's the product, and the UI would be how the coffee look like. And so I think a UX designer role is much more than just UI. If you just focus on UI, it's really not enough.
But the UI should be how the place look like. When you
It
first
can
walk
be.
in, there's the
It can be.
UI design.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The product itself maybe like a button,
Yep.
like the Starbucks.
Yep. But the problem I have with UI designer, maybe not all, is that UI designer tends to not be that empathetic because it's more of a technical skill. But I think that's changing because UI UX is kind of merging already. And then the other one that I want to show is actually this is a good example where a UI designer designing for a weather application, they tend to, over design. So you open the application, every one of them looks amazing, but a UX designer would think differently. They'll be more empathetic to the user, and they probably gonna just design something like this, which is not even a design.
So to you, there's still a very clear distinction,
There's a clear distinction.
and it's very rare for one to kind of merge.
So would it be right to say that user interface is a subset of user experience?
I think so.
Yeah. And a UI guy should have an understanding of UX too. So if you're hiring a UI guy, he should be understanding the bigger picture while he's doing the UI piece, right?
I think it'll be very helpful for him as well.
Sorry, just stepping at that. Do you guys find user experience with corporate identity, with brand identity?
Yep.
And
But-
how do you guys do that?
To be honest, that's not my strength because for me, at least, it's product design. So we have a separate marketing that does branding and colors and all that.
So unless it probably do that's not combined, because if you use Starbucks for example just now, right? I mean the entire Starbucks is, yes, it's all about, I wouldn't call it user experience, it's probably more about consumer experience per se, but that itself is probably what forms Starbucks, why Starbucks is Starbucks,
Yeah.
because of the entire service that Starbucks actually
Yeah.
provides to customers.
Yeah.
So with Property Guru itself, being a product, do you guys combine, how the experience should feel like that everybody knows even without all the visuals, whatever, that people actually know, oh wait a minute, this is Property Guru stuff. Is that something that you guys actively, work hand in hand with the corporate, I don't know, with the brand identity person or
Yeah.
team whatsoever?
So we consult each other. So the head of marketing will get the UI kit from the UX team, and then we get some of the branding guidelines from the marketing. So branding guidelines are specific to brand colors, like what is the tone of red, the personality of the brand, the voice, the logo design and all that. So marketing typically handles all that.
But you also improve the color-wise for screen sharing, for different kinds of devices, because that's where it normally can go wrong with lack of contrast.
Yeah.
With choosing imagery for print versus online, portrait versus landscape, everything
Yeah.
that comes aside with that.
Interesting enough that you asked that because this is not our Property Guru red. Our Property Guru red is much brighter. So initially the website is using this red, and every time I see the head of marketing, I'm like, my eyes are so painful because I have to design for this. Can we change the contrast? And what I did was I showed her a website that calculates contrast and said this is actually better for usability. It's easier to read, and then she's okay. So we are using the darker red now.
So you have to prove it.
I have to prove it.
So moving a little bit, shifting it to the soft sides of design, right? So engaging the stakeholders, and I'm sure in Property Group there's a lot of stakeholders to engage in, right? So any horror or
This she will be a good person.
Endless. She always got to deal with us and got to prove this rate and that rate. What's the difference? Okay, especially when it comes to Property Guru, most of our agents are not that IT savvy, so we do have challenge. Give you an example. How many
Okay, you know
agents?
negative stuff. So I think the cadence of communication is very important. You need to pick who you communicate with. every newcomer, we go through a UX like onboarding to tell us what we are about. And then I think it really gets their attention when you come up with matrix. So for the UX team, we are very, very data driven. We match the data with the company objective, and I think that's when they actually start to listen. So I also have an example that I'll show you.
How many of you use just data in your work to supply like design evidence, as evidence to support your design decisions? 1, 2, 3.
So for Property Guru, right, the only thing that they measure previously is leads to the agents, so that the agents will continue with their subscription. And then that's it.
Maybe to those who are not familiar with the business model of
Okay. So Property Guru is a property portal where you search for property, we're not agents, and then the agents will advertise on the portal. So the consumers will find, this is the journey. So they will do so we have discovery, where the consumers first discover the website, and then a trial where they first start using the website. So this is applicable to new users as well as users who are seeing a change in design for the first time. So we cater to both. And then our primary funnel is the search. So after they search, they will filter out their properties based on the criteria, because most of the property seekers, they have basic criteria such as price and location. So they will filter out the properties that doesn't match. After that, they select a few, and it's where they start to compare and really analyze into this property. And then this is where it differs in different markets. So for example, in Indonesia, they will start looking at the security of the property. They look for gated community, they look for like a security guard. But these are the things we take for granted in Singapore because everywhere is safe. So these are the part analyzed, they will look at different things. And then, interesting enough, the renters look for a different thing, has different criteria as local. When I talk to expat especially, how they filter the property is that, you know, for normal users, they do price low to high. So they find the best, the lowest price first. For expats, it's actually high to low.
Is that true?
That's true.
That's true.
And can you tell why?
No, because it's really strange because I'm Dutch and normally we want the cheapest for everything. So no, but it's like you have your maximum of what you can spend each month, and then okay, what can I get for this maximum? And then you scroll down, and then most of the time, I think even data will show that maybe below on page 1, maybe starting at page 2, the most clicks will fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also depends, I mean, like if you have a lot of, if most of your results are like HDV, for example, you know, that's going to cut out pretty much all the expat community. So it doesn't make any sense to go low to high when you know that for the first 10 pages, none of that's going to apply to me if I'm an expat.
Yeah.
You know,
So we have a property type filter, so you can filter out the HDB. And then after that, you do the sorting.
Right.
And other thing that I noticed, which is very funny, is that expats tend to look at the shower pressure. What? That's my...
How do you track that, by the way? How do you know that they look at the shower?
We do qualitative customer research, and then when we do research, the first step is usually discovery. I can also show you, I'll get back to this. So I'll show you some of the questions that we ask. So this is a typical consumer research. It will take an hour, and then the goals is to understand the problems, behavior, and expectation towards property search. And then usually we do the design feedback as well, based on the last design sprint, and then sometimes validate new concepts. So discovery is about 30 minutes, where we really get to know the users and understand the journey they take so that we can create our user journey. And then it always starts with very easy questions so that I feel comfortable. I think for user research, my main goal is to make them feel comfortable. It doesn't matter whether they answer the questions or not, because if they don't feel comfortable, they're just not going to answer it properly. So that is, I tell the researcher that's the main goal. You make them feel comfortable, you talk to them. If they don't like talking, you don't talk to them. So there's a lot of like sales tactics that you can use, like mirroring and things like that, which I asked my researcher to do. So for all these questions, I find this question the most insightful, and it takes the longest time because we go right from the beginning and then we ask everything. Like, okay, so you're using Google. Do you remember what you searched for? And then we note everything. And then it usually ends when they finish the transaction. And sometimes it goes on. So I find this question very insightful.
So, since you came up with this insight of then looking for shower pressures through qualitative research.
Don't ask me how to solve it.
No, I'm not asking how to solve it, but you can only, when you're researching qualitatively, you are just talking to them, so you can only invite so many participants. So how many people need to tell you that for you to establish a reliable pattern that, okay, this is true?
Four.
Out of
Together, for every user research we ask about 8, because that's for qualitative. I think who? Nelson, yeah. He used the chart for.
That's normal actually when you Google number of user research. There are articles of like specs there. Yeah.
Yeah, so he said that 5 you give a lot of insights already. You would have enough information. 7 to 8 is to confirm those information, and anything more than that, it doesn't actually give you value.
From what I understand, I read the article as well, the freelance curve, but he was talking more about the usability testing.
Yeah.
But when this is more of, mining
Qualitative.
insights, which there can be many more answers.
Yep.
So do you think it's important to validate that quantitatively after you?
Yes,
because
definitely.
Then that way, then for people telling us that's more
Correct.
like a hypothesis which
Correct.
you have to
Correct.
confirm.
Okay, actually there's two answers to that. So one is that whenever we do, and our cadence of user research is quite frequent, so when we do user research, we will put all the raw data into a spreadsheet like that. So then it's easy to find, it's also easy to look back at what are some of the common problems. So if we do, for example, 1 quarter, we do 4 rounds of research in each of the market, then by the end of the year, you actually have a lot of data that you can mine. The other thing is that, as I mentioned, I always believe in the cycle, that it always has to end with quantitative data. So I believe in the lean startup methodology a lot. I'm like a huge fan of the lean methodology. So whatever we learn, sometimes we feel like it's not even accurate. I have a good example because we operate in Singapore market. If you ask Indonesians a question, they tend to be very, very positive. So everything is, oh, bagus, I'll use it. And then if you ask a Singaporean the same question, they tend to be very critical. They'll be like, oh, this sucks. But then if you launch the product, you realize that actually a lot of Singaporeans will use it. And it happened to me that in the end, it wasn't a product market fit. So it was my first time doing research in Asia, in my previous role, so it was very positive. But when you launch the product, you realize that out of the 16 beta users, actually none of them used it. So it was a shock to me, and I had to tailor my expectation and questions to get real insights out of them.
I'm generally I'm actually from a qualitative background, not kind of qualitative. There's one thing I noticed, my problem, I was actually quite shocked. We interview about 4 to 5 people. Because like my company generally do about 13 one round.
Okay.
It's because we notice there's a lot of people that actually lie in the interview. Some they just do it for the sake of the survey rewards. They fake the profile, but actually when they open the account it's empty. And I noticed that apart from this interviewing, we actually need to learn how to spot fake profilers. How many percentage did you get those kind of people in Singapore?
Actually, Singaporeans, I don't know, my experience for Singaporeans are they're actually very truthful and very honest. So what they say they actually would do. I actually have more problems with other market. But I feel like after you get a sense, after you compare it with the data, you actually get better at user research as well, because you get the end data. So I believe both need to be there. And the other thing is because the lean cycle is very, very short. So after 2 weeks, and then you take 1 week of measurement, by that time you can already validate your learnings. And then you learn how to adjust from there. And obviously, user research is more of a soft skill. So it's more of a personality. Like, you need to be personable, you need to get the person to open. And during the research, I feel like if you know that it's a successful research, is the person the one to leave? And then one good question to ask is whether they can refer someone. If they are very enthusiastic, then it's a good sign that you did a good research. I have a lot of examples where after 1 hour they just don't want to go, they just keep talking and talking and talking. And then to me, that's a good research because you have the connection already.
Where do you usually prefer to find them? Through a third-party agency or through your own ERA?
We tried a few rounds. Previously we worked with a recruiter. It works. We also asked our own friends and colleagues to refer people who are looking for property. It also works. I don't see a lot of difference actually.
Do you guys
Oh, and sorry. And the monetary reward is actually something that you have to adjust. So previously in Indonesia, we realized that we were paying a little bit too much. So we get users who are not sincere. So we were asking, but it's very easy to filter them out because people who are actually looking for property, they are very specific and they know exactly like, oh, I'm looking for this, and this is what I did. And then those who are not looking for property, they actually know nothing. Because property, you actually need some knowledge.
So do you guys look at the market segmentation as well?
Sorry?
Market segmentation. So
Yes, we do. And there's a few ways to look at it. So for Singapore, right, we segment into first-time home buyers, and then returning or upgraders, and then expats. Renters, we divide into the expats as well as those who are sharing. And then we have investors as well, amateur investors, and then real investors. So amateur investors are property seekers who think that they're investors, but they're not, actually not. And then we distinct them, even though both of them say that they are investors, is because the way they search for property is very, very different. So when we talk to a user who said that they are investor, and then when we ask them, they say, oh, they're buying this property as a passive income, they're gonna tend to rent it out, and then they're gonna convert it or upgrade. So they call themselves investors, but actually they're not. And then we talk to investors who buy and sell properties like products, and they don't actually go for viewings. They just look at the data and then decide that okay, this is the one, and then they just bought it.
Alright.
So very different behavior.
So,
Yeah. So this whole process is a big one, starting from intention to buy the property, then buying the property, and then the post-purchase part of it. And your questionnaire also captures the whole cycle in terms of how you're finding it, how you're doing it. So how do you optimize the whole consumer journey? So starting from search till the time the post-purchase happens, how do you optimize the whole path?
Okay, so I wanted to get back to this because I wanted to show the measurement. So this journey, we have two different journeys. This journey is specific to property guru. So we know how to optimize that funnel. So discovery, trial, search, select, analyze, inquire, and then the retention. And then what is most important is the measurement part. So I want to know whether discovery is doing well. These are the measurements that I use. The unique users, page views, acquisition cost per user. And then for the trial, it can be the landing bounds, and then the number of searches. And then for search, it's the searches per user, results per search, number of search rematches. And then for the results, it's the number of click-throughs, number of shortlists, number of call to action, which is our primary leads generation. And then for the health of the product, will be new listings per day, so that we get fresh listings every day, because actually that is the minimum value for the product, for the consumer, that they know that Property Guru is representative of the market and we have the most listing in Singapore. And then number of moderated content, this is content quality. And then finally, this inquire is the number of leads. And then as leads per user definitely is the actionable metric. But previously we are only measuring number of leads. And after the UX team come in and ask, why are you measuring all this? It doesn't tell you what to do with your product, then we changed. And then for growth, especially for new products, if you're a startup, then it's very important for you to look at the user churn, the lifetime value, and then the viral code efficiency. So these are things that you can Google for and get the formulas from online. One book that I highly recommend would be, first of all, to give context, would be the Lean Startup book, because it will pitch you the idea of Lean Startup. The second book that I find really, really helpful is Lean Analytics. They have a lot of case studies of the different models, and then you can look at the case study and see what kind of metrics you should use for a product.
How closely do you work with, for example, sales or marketing in regards to features that specific segments want? For example, market insights would be more useful to, example, the investors or the wannabe investors to say casual seekers, renters, etc.
Investors are not our primary target. So our primary target is first-time homeowners as well as upgraders. So at this point, we don't actually focus on investors at all.
Okay. What's your stance on someone utilizing your product for example, if they use a data trawler to trawl through property group? What's your, how do you react to that? It's a broad question.
We'll sue them.
Good answer. So, you mentioned that you're hiring, right? And what are things that you look out for in one of those?
I find it very difficult to find UX designer right now.
Why?
Because it's a spectrum of skills. And it's actually very difficult to find a UX designer who is analytical as well. Because I just think that it's not, if you are visual spatial intelligence, you're actually not very good at mathematics. It's very hard to find someone who's strong in both. So for me, right, I hate mathematics. I fail my math all the time. After school, I'm like, okay, finally I don't need to deal with numbers anymore. But I find it so helpful to my career, to convincing the stakeholders that I force myself to measure like a maniac. And I also see change in people when I see product owners who are not data driven, and then after they switch to being data driven, they are much more confident in their decisions. And it's very hard to get actionable data, so you really need to really dive into it to see what data you should measure. But it will come to a point where you can hold the numbers in your hand, and that is very satisfying for me. So I would, if you are truly data driven, I've met a lot of people who are data driven. Even if they are vanity metrics are things like your downloads and then your leads, bounces, things that, you know, sometimes it up, go down, you don't really know. So you will not be affected by all these metrics. So when maybe the stakeholders come in and ask you, hey, why the leads are dropping, you'll be like, don't worry, I know how to change it. You want me to improve by 10%, you know, just give me the time and I can improve it. So it comes to that point where you know exactly what to do to change the metrics, and these are people that, you know, have a lot of power and a lot of weight in what they do in a company, and these are the people who actually rise very quickly.
So on rising, right? So, what is the kind of like career path for a UX designer?
Depends.
Like now you are sort of like leading design, user experience.
I think I still have a lot to learn. And I'm actually very flattered that people are here because I know a lot of senior people are here as well. And then I saw one of them, actually I was like following his work. I'm a big fan for a long time, I don't see him here though. So I love being in a community. To rise, what I aspire is to be, I hope that, you know, collectively we get to a C level. So we'll be as important as a CMO or a CFO. And I think a lot of design-led companies already have someone in the executive level. So I do feel like UX, you know, should go towards C level.
Into an executive position.
Yep.
That has more influence.
Yep.
Any questions?
What about the rapport relationship between the UX guy and the developer? So how much a UX guy should understand the role of a developer, the coding part of it, the technical part of it?
I think if there's enough trust, then not really. I think as a UX designer, you should be aware of what you can and cannot do. So if you use prototyping tool like Flinto, you would be constrained into what the tech can do anyway. So I think that will give you good insights. And then I also do a lot of, like, just download a lot of apps and see what is possible. And then there are free libraries that the engineers would actually like show and then share with us, so we get our knowledge there. And obviously open communications is the best, right? Sometimes you just have to design. And to me, because I believe in Lean, so for me the speed is better and more important than perfect design or design with a lot of animation. So I usually just tell the engineers, tell me what library is available and we will design based on that so that it's fast. Once you get the product out there and it's already has met the market needs, then you can, if you have resources, then you can optimize it. But if the product is not stable, then speed is more important.
Oh, sorry.
She was referring a lot about lean products and lean design, but I notice right now quite a few businesses are going to multiple verticals. Do you find that very confusing? Like Nestia now does rental, does food reviews, does ticketing, and a few more businesses are actually going towards that as well, especially in China.
Yeah.
In China, if you actually went there for research, most of the apps actually can do pretty much everything in one app as well. Do you find that actually confusing, or do you think that will actually possibly ever come to Singapore?
I think it's quite confusing. And I used to believe that, I might be wrong, that it's unique to a specific market. So it's very unique to China and that's what I feel. Like a lot of the applications that are popular there, they can actually do everything in one app. So I think it feels like the property can do a lot and
even Uber Taxi is not doing Uber as well also.
Yeah. But then it's a separate app. So it's still a little bit different. I have no clear answer. I've been watching it.
It's a different app.
Okay. Well, Gojek in Indonesia basically does the same thing as well. And like
they just bought over healthcare.
Go healthcare.
You had a question?
Yeah, actually I'm going back to, we are taking a step back to research, and let's consider a scenario where you are not optimizing an existing website, but you're building something from ground up. How do you design for measurable use? What are the conditions that we need to keep in mind? Is it business KPI to interface, or is it user needs to interface? Is there any
Yeah. Let me try to find a recent research that we did. Okay, so we have after every consumer research, we will do a presentation to everyone involved, including the management, on what it's about, and then what is the methodology that we use, and then who are the users that we talk to. So, and then some of the questions. For this research, we did a lot of new concepts actually. So what we did, we have 5 concepts, very different concepts. The first one is resident chat channel. So imagine if I live in a project and I want to talk to residents that's living in a project, I can do so. It's like Slack but for property. And then to do the viewings with agents, to do viewings directly with owners, we have this concept of open house. So an owner can open their house for viewing in a weekend in a specific time slot. So it's more like an event where you can RSVP and then turn up and look at the property. And then we did a group buying discount. It's like Groupon for property. So because this is exploration, we will ask them what they think. Do they like? Do they don't like? And then we ask them to rate. If it's just one feature, we ask them to rate from 1 to 10. And then from there, we get the ratings and then calculate. And then if we have a lot of concepts like this, we ask them to rank. So they will prioritize for us, and then we see which are the popular one. So for example, residents chat channel is the most popular idea, then what happens is that we will try to think of an MVP for residents chat channel. So an MVP means we're not going to build it. We can get something that is already available. Or for maybe a better example would be scheduled viewings with owners. So what we can do is that we select an MVP would be we select a property, probably a popular one, and then we put a form there that says sign up. Or it could be a form that says when do you want to view, and then we see what's the click-through rate. So we don't have to actually build anything, it's just putting a form there, which takes very, very little effort. And then once we have that, we can measure the product market fit. I think it's about 40%. So if this is seen by 10 users, if 40% actually click on it and do something, then you can progress to a better product. And it should be done in a sprint, so that the cycle is very tight, instead of like a 6 months and then you don't know what to do with it.
I have a question. So let's say for my company, right, we have a lot of different product units, and we usually don't agree with the design team on many levels, so we'll design our own design. We will test. So we'll always do A/B testing. So I used to be from business, I'm at DBS Bank, right? And we had a lot of conflict doing the design. We used to do like ABC testing, and we will show the customers different designs. So the best design wins, right? Weakest one is. But then came along a professional user research team that we hired professionally, who were strongly against ABC testing of any sort. They said that we should only do A testing. So everyone got very upset, like why do you need to do that to us, Mine is better than yours. Yours is horrible, mine is better, right? That's what everyone thinks, and so does all the designers. So from a very political standpoint, I always prefer to do A/B testing, but as I go to every talk and every meetup, the professional user experience or researchers will say no A/B testing. So I want to know what's your take on that.
We definitely do A/B testing, but it needs to be the right test for A/B testing. So for example, one of the A/B testing that we did recently is changing the masthead of Malaysia website. So if you go to Singapore website, it's very, very cluttered. If you go to Malaysia, I think there's just like 4 links, so it's much closer to this version. So I think there's just 4 main links. So the hypothesis is that it's going to bring more traffic to each of these pages instead of all the clutter, and then we did an A/B testing on that. So it was a very clear result. So I think A/B testing, you need to be very specific on what you want to test for. If you want to test for things like different design, it's very hard to test for that unless it's like a change in the color or change in the button, like a button color or link color. It has to be quite small, and definitely you need statistically relevant, so it needs to be of a certain number.
So it's like there's a benchmark, and then you are doing incremental design improvement, and that's where you can use A/B testing.
Yeah. And I think it's easier to convince people as well, because it's easy to understand. Because if the variance is so huge, right, maybe it's a design A versus design B, then people will start arguing, like maybe it's not the color, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So it's not very conclusive.
And it sounds like what you did is probably more concept testing than A/B testing. I mean, A/B testing is specific into when you're trying to, just test one feature, and it's real users and it's very huge quantity, probably in thousands, millions, whatever. But it sounds like you're probably doing more concept testings when you talk to consumers and show them 3 different concepts. Is that what you guys did?
Yeah, because like for example, when I'm dealing with business or particular product owner, they'll be like, I want everything. They'll be like, I want this on this page, I want everything in just one page, so that they don't need to click. If they have to click, it's not good.
That's the persona of a business user.
Yeah, just put more T and C. So T and C's put a whole paragraph here, okay? Because legal and compliance here, I want this whole text here. But you don't have a choice if it's there. So I put it there first, right? I can't say no unless I show it to customers that customers actually say, I don't like it here, it's too cluttered, then I can validate that I can't do with this design. So I do a lot of A/B testing. One is based on what they want, exactly what they want. They want it on the left-hand corner, they want it like this and that. Followed by what I feel that this is the proposed one that I should do. Then we will test it like that. It's kind of skilled in a way.
Yeah, I think you
It's
got
very
it.
skilled, but it works for me from a very political standpoint
Okay.
to prove what I want.
Okay. I think the other trait of a UX designer is that they need to be open to all suggestions and at least willing to try and try properly.
Yeah.
So there are things that I don't agree with the business, but you just go through the test and sometimes you might think you might find out that you're wrong. And I like to be proven wrong because if you are proven right all the time, you're not going to learn anything, right? Because I'm right all the time, I'm not going to listen to you. But if you actually get something wrong, it's like it strikes you. Just like when we did the user research in Indonesia and got it completely wrong, and then you learn that you need to tailor your expectations and tailor the questions properly. So I think be more open mind and test it properly. So if it's clutter that you are testing, just test the clutter. If it's the logo that you are testing, test the logo.
And how often do you test then? And is it just one time? And how big are the groups?
For A/B testing?
Yes, because I also worked with companies which did only then testing. We worked together with them, and of course you have an indication. But right, one day you have 5 people, and 3 of them like that, and the next day you have 5 people, and 5 of them like that. So it's always just indications. So I'm wondering if you have a new feature, you did test only once, and how big is the group then, or you do it maybe 2 or 3 times?
We use VWO. So the good thing about the tool is that they tell you how much is enough, and then you get to set the goals. So one of the tests that we did was this background design. So I think there's a few ways. It can be very different. We tried cityscapes before, where we have a landscape of Malaysia, and then we tried human-centered, so it's more like Airbnb, things that you can connect emotionally with. We tried a very plain one, and then we tried like illustration. So by far, the cityscape and illustration is winning, and then we open it to 100% of the traffic. So VW will tell you that, okay, this is significant and you have a winning version, so it's quite clear. So we just copy the whole results and then give it to whoever that's arguing. And then now that they want to change, they're like, oh, we did the test already. It's all in VWO and documented. But then again, you have to expect new people who come in who want to do the test again.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to bring them through the journey. Like I've done user research multiple times. Every time someone new comes in, like a head of product comes in, they were like, oh, why don't we do this, why don't we do this? I bring them through the whole user research again. Because to me, I think them understanding is more important than me arguing and say that this design is like that.
And I think it's very common in organizations where you have people leaving and then whatever that was done previously wasn't handled or documented well, right? So how are you sort of like managing that?
For design?
Yeah.
So for design, we use, everything is synced in the cloud. So all the files, all the working files are there. And then even research or all the findings are all synced. And then because the UX team is so lean and we just sit beside each other, so we actually know exactly what each of us is doing. So we don't need a lot of handler. In fact, one of my teammates left. That's why I'm looking for a new UX designer. But I scheduled like a 1 hour handoff with her, and then it's like, what are we gonna talk about? So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the organizational evolution of public with respect to UX and its role? Because every organization kind of has a different setup, a different role for UX. How does it fit in with technology, with marketing, with so the definition's a little different from company to company. So within Property Guru, like, did it start with using an agency? Did they provide the I guess marketing, and branding, and the UI, and then kind of evolve from there?
I think it always had a designer, and then it evolved into a UX team. Before I came, they actually consulted ThoughtWorks. So ThoughtWorks had UX designer brought into the organization, and I think they provided a lot of value to the organization, so they believed in it. and then they started hiring UX designer. So initially there's just one, and then this amazing UX designer hired me and another UX designer, and then we are just, and then for us, I think we brought a lot of data analytics into the UX. So when I talk to Yanni, I'll be like, okay, we're going to increase leads by 20%, and this is how we're going to do it. And then we will show them case studies, as well as putting something that's like that. So these are the key measurements that Yanni and Steve said, okay, this is what we're going to aim for. And then sprint after sprint, we will show them whether we are going to the right direction, whether we're not, what we're going to do. And then I think with this, right, they see a lot of value in the UX team because it's helping to get the key metrics up anyway. And then they say, okay, we need more UX people. So and I had a conversation with it came out like, how do I motivate my UX team? I feel like if you are in UX and you're passionate about being UX, you already sold that UX is important. So my role now is to sell it to the rest of the company, and it's still, I think, organizing different companies is still a struggle because UX can be ambiguous. And sometimes, as I mentioned, if you are too focused on the upstream and you don't show the connection of this findings means you're going to improve this, or this finding means you're going to improve this, means you have more revenue, then they're not really going to treat you seriously. They'll be like, okay, you're just design.
Actually, I have a question.
Sorry to cut you there because we are running out of time. There's one last question from Mr. Lim. Yeah.
So, besides buy and sell, I noticed that you also have articles, guides. So, who create those articles, and is there any metrics of measuring this?
We have a content team that does all that articles. I'm not sure if there's a metric. We are doing some, for marketing it's not very data driven yet, so I don't think there's a lot of metrics there. Yeah, product is more data driven.
Do you do heavy testing for app as well, applications?
No.
Is it because
Disappointingly, no. For application, what we do is that we do iterative. So it's not A/B testing. It's we launch this and then we change this and then what metrics change. And then now we are investing in an A/B testing tool, so we are still testing the A/B testing tool. But most of the design for mobile and application is consistent. So what you see in the design is actually very similar to the mobile web version. If you open Property Guru in a phone. So we do a lot of testing on the mobile web version as well. And then because it's easier to deploy. So once it is validated there, then we move on to the app.
Okay, so that's it. Hopefully everyone got something out of this session. Thanks a lot, Priscilla. I got one small little question.
Oh.
It's just the S size.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end. I think there's still some snacks and drinks and the wine and whiskey and whatnot. Right. If you all have a good evening.
Thank you.